Okay, here we come to the third video when we're going to remove the inner primary chain case cover. We've already removed the outer, this is the inner, which is going to be a bit of fun, mainly because I haven't done it for about 4 years, and I have, as you may well have already noticed, got fitted electric start to my bike. So that means I have a large electric starter kind of in the way. What we're going to do, here's the inner casing. Not necessarily in any particular order, but the first thing is I'm going to remove the sprocket. This is the sprocket that drives the oil pump. Behind here is the oil pump. Now, if I was going to remove the oil pump, then what I would do is I would loosen this nut just so that when I got the oil pump out I could undo it. Just loosen it. It's got a very strange diamond shaped locking tab on this nut. I'd loosen the nut, then very carefully get some tyre levers or something behind this sprocket and use the sprocket to ease out the oil pump. Anyway, I'm not going to take the pump out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this nut, take the sprocket off, take the side idler off, which I'm not doing at the moment because that's helping me to, if I take that off then the pump will just spin, whereas at the moment it's locked by the engine. Take these two sprockets off, take that sprocket off, at which point I remember whether there's two, yeah, there must be two bolts holding, there's 2 bolts holding the pump together and 4 bolts holding the pump in place. Yeah. Okay. So having done that, then we've got to take off the mounting plate, which mounts on the back of the inner chain case, including the brake pedal, which is always fun. And then I would normally be able to take this off and unscrew the Allen bolts and basically take the cover off. The tricky one being this one. As you can see, that is the back of a thread, what it looks like. It looks like, well, that's the back of a thread. And on the other side of the breather here is a bolt that goes through. So obviously you need to undo it from that side, which you can do if you haven't got a massive starter motor in the way. Oh, and by the way, on earlier models, you don't have this nut. You have like a flat head with 2 holes in it. The reason for that is that this nut is really close to the primary chain. So what they did on earlier models to make it even flatter, they used that special sort of nut, which was, no, look at that, yeah, it's straight off. Okay, and there we go. And that just to remind me, yeah. We have 4 nuts that 4 bolts that hold the pump in place and 2 that hold it together. So the 4 bolts with crosshead on, they're the ones that hold the actual pump in place, and the 2 bolts with a flathead screwdriver, they're the bolts that hold the pump together. So if you're going to take the pump out when the sprocket's still on, you turn the sprocket till these holes line up, and then you'd remove these 4 Phillips or crosshead screws. Okay, don't remove those 2. So you remove these 4 by turning this until you could see the heads. Then when the bolts are out, that's when you'd lever, or of course what you could do is take actually it might be easier to take this off. That's a bit easier, wouldn't it? We take this off first, then remove the 4 Phillips, and then put this back on, and then lever it off. Okay, but I'm not intending to take the oil pump out, which means it will probably come out of its own accord when I take this cover off. So I'm leaving it. No, of course it won't come out because I haven't removed the screws. One thing that's worth noting is these 4 bolts, one of them, which I think is this one, is slightly longer than the others. Okay, and that one that's at 11 o'clock. So when you take them out, you think, and you forget to check, and you look, hang on a minute, there's 3 one length and 1 the other. There's this one that's longer, and this is the one. There's a dowel at the end, and it's this one that goes into the dowel that's slightly longer. But they're staying there in my case. Okay, so that's done. Just final thing on the oil pump, by the way. First time I took the oil pump out, I didn't know to lever it out first using the sprocket. So it was a bit like that. So, and then it was difficult to get out. So what I did, I screwed the nut back onto the shaft. Obviously went after this inner case would be removed. Took those 4 screws out, screwed the nut back onto the shaft, then put a pair of mole grips onto the nut so I wouldn't damage the thread. And then I was able to use the mole grips to pull the pump out. So if you've forgotten to do that or whatever, and you're past that position and you're trying to get the pump out, then that worked fine. I think next I'm going to remove the engine mounting plate from the back of the inner primary chain case. Okay, so let me see. I'm wondering if I can get away with leaving the plate in place and just removing the mountings. I might do that. 6 one after the other, really. I'll try doing that. I'll try just removing the engine mountings and leave the plate in place. I'm sure that I will live to regret that, because then the plate will be in the way or something later on, but that's what we'll try. So I had to take the whole starter motor off. To get the starter motor off, I had to loosen all the carbs, and it's a right job getting off. It's taken me about an hour. I've had to take all the electrics off. I had to take the cover off, which is a job in itself, and then the starter motor's out and everything, which is a nightmare to do. And so that I could get to the Allen screw at the back. And then, of course, having done all that, I've realised that as this is now a T160 breather unit, it doesn't have that screw. That screw, when you put the electric start conversion on, that screw is no longer used. Anyway, at least I've removed the bolts and the spacers from the back of the engine brackets and engine plates, and so now I'm going to remove the last of the bolts from around the inner casing, and without having to remove the electric starter, I'm going to take the casing off. Right, I'm now removing the bolts and Allen keys that I do actually have to remove to take this cover off. The thing to remember about this inner cover is the bolts and that are in a very strange place. So around the edge, you've only got a couple. You've got one there, you've got a bolt there which I've removed, and you've got one here. Yeah, I think that's it. But then inside you've got several Allen keys inside. Yeah, easy to miss, very easy. And then, oh yeah, and that one, don't forget that one. Oh, blimey, it's so easy to miss them, it really is. And then you've got a central bolt there. I've removed the oiling system just so I can see things a bit clearer. But what I'm saying, it's really easy to miss one of these, just one. I mean, I nearly missed that one because, of course, you're sitting here or whatever, and you're looking down and you can't see the damn thing because it's there. You know, it's under the spigot. So you just have to be really careful. Just double check you've actually removed all the bolts, and on a normal machine that you've taken that one out from the other side of the breather system. By the by, this is an earlier inner chain case because mine was cracked here, and so I managed to source this one fantastic from America through eBay. It worked really well. But when it arrived, it's got this big lump here. I thought, what on earth is that? I haven't got that on mine. It turns out that this is a casting. It was an early idea that they then abandoned for, it was going to be so they could convert the bikes to left-hand gear change. And what they were going to do was put some sort of weird linkage that went, there was going to be a drill there, and there was going to be a bar going across the engine, and then a linkage up to the gearbox to try and convert them to left-hand gear change because they knew that was coming. But then I think it was postponed probably over in the States. You know, the change was coming, but it wasn't implemented straight away. So sort of thankfully, probably, they abandoned this idea of the sort of linkage system for the left-hand gear change. But that's what those are for. Right, I'm going to remove all the bolts and double check that I have actually got them all out, and then see if I can pull the casing away. Right, got all the taken all the bolts etc. out, and then, as I say, double check, treble check that everything is out, because I am checking, and then I suddenly think, I'll just check under here. Oh, look at that. And there's one that I've forgotten about, hidden underneath the gasket. Look at that. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just so easy to do. And then I'd have been pulling this away. At worst, I'd been frustrated, and at best, I'd have been frustrated, and at worst, I'd have broken the damn casing. You really need to treble check that you've got all the bolts out before you try and remove a casing. Right, time for that one to come out as well, and then I think we're there. Right, now I have checked, double checked and treble checked that all the bolts and Allen screws etc. are out. I'm going to try and lever off the casing. Now this time I do have something I can lever against, which of course is this very same boss here. So I've got my dear old tyre lever, and I'm going to use it against the engine plate and just see if I can lever gently. Oh, come on. Oh yeah, we're going. Better movement there. Yeah, there's some movement. Yeah, it's broken. So I've just got to go round. Right, so I've managed to ease it off, bit of careful leverage, and then just managed to get my fingers on the left hand end. And there, it's coming off, and the inner is off. I didn't heat the casing and all that because it was so much easier to get off, because you could get behind the casing and lift it. With the outer casing, there's nothing to really hold on to pull it off. That's why I heated the casing. As you can see this time, all the gaskets are broken up. Oil pumps still in situ, which is fine. That's as I say, I'm not going to work on it, so I don't need to do that. Just make a note that there is an oil seal actually in the outer casing, and I'll be replacing that oil seal, which goes on goes around the oil pump. And here's the clutch, and so the clutch should literally just lift out. There it comes. Oh, what's heavy bugger. Alright, there we are, and that is the whole clutch unit with the pull rod. Oh, put it there. Well, it is heavy. Oh, with one hand. Yeah, is it there? Can you see it? No, you can't. Never mind, it's there. And so all we've got to do now is this is the clutch hub. Can we see that? I think we can. This is the clutch hub that the actual clutch runs on. I'm going to check that for wear, because once the teeth start going on that clutch hub, then they can easily disappear completely, and then you're in big trouble. Check the splines. I'll check the splines on the back of the clutch. They look really good. Okay. Right. Well, the inner cover is finally off after an awful lot of fun and games caused entirely by my own poor memory. All I can say is it was about 4 years ago, it was over 4 years ago, that I fitted the starter motor, and that was the last time I had the primary apart. And you forget things. So I forgot that because there's a T160 breather on it, you don't use that extra last, that hidden screw isn't used. And so I took all the starter motors off for no real reason, but anyway, it's out of the way now. And indeed, it does seem to work, leaving the engine plate on. It doesn't seem to be in the way. I'll see how we get on. But the brake pedal is beginning to annoy me slightly already. Right, but there we go. So next job will be to remove the clutch hub, clutch nut, clutch hub, and then take that plate off, and we're finally through to the gearbox sprocket. And you know, and if you need to change the gearbox sprocket, you have to do all this to get to the gearbox sprocket. You know, and that's why so many bikes, when you get them, the gearbox sprocket is really worn, because people replace the chain, they replace the rear sprocket, but they don't replace the gearbox sprocket, because it's such a nightmare to get through all this just to replace a sprocket and then, you know, build it all back up again. Right, anyway, but we're there. Oh, happy with that. That took a lot longer than I planned, but anyway, we're there. Hurrah.